Welcome back to another edition of Tranquility du Jour, nourishing conversations about living a full and meaningful life with doses of tranquility. This is episode 507. I'm your host, Kimberly Wilson, bringing you tranquility since 2005. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone who joined me last night for TDJ Live. It is always so much fun to be with you and to go over 8 new tools and ways to play with tranquility in this new season. Happy fall, by the way. And then also, I'm delighted and so excited to announce that TDJ Lifestyle, my new e-course, is live. So I'll mention that in a moment, but I want to let you know who we are chatting with today. We're talking with the lovely Ellen Meredith about her new book, The Language Your Body Speaks, Self-Healing and Energy Medicine. So you're going to learn how to understand your body's energy, tap into your internal guidance system, and activate your body's innate capacity to thrive. So doesn't that sound amazing? I'll take some of that. Now, Amazon has come out with the ability to subscribe or to get your podcast there. So now you can subscribe to Tranquility du Jour in Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, Overcast. And I've got links to all of these in the show notes. So would love to have you subscribe so that you never miss an episode. I've been doing weekly for the past few months, and I'll probably continue this through the end of the year. I've got lots and lots of amazing interviews to share with you. And a reminder, you can always find the show notes over at kimberlywilson.com/the number of the podcast. And this one is /506. Also, if you'd like to have Tranquility du Jour with you at all times, like on your phone, there's an app for iPhones and Androids. And you can find that at kimberlywilson.com/podcast. So again, we'll have a replay of last night's TDJ Live, and you can find that over on the Tranquility du Jour live page. And that'll also be over on the blog, which is kimberlywilson.com/blog. And it's $10, and then a portion of all the proceeds benefit Pigs and Pugs Project. So thank you for helping make the lives of pigs and pugs happier. So TDJ Lifestyle, this is my brand new e-course, and early bird pricing ends this Friday, September 25th, and you'll save $50 by signing up now. And what we're going to be doing is diving into each of the 5 TDJ tenets, exploring them with modules for each of them, and that will be released each Monday starting on October 12th. Now there's more details, of course, over on the website, and again, I'm just really delighted. This is my first e-course in a year and would love to have you with us. So if you have any questions about it, please don't hesitate to ask. I feel like right now more than ever, we need a little more tranquility. My hope is that this just gives us a taste of how these 5 tenets can make our lives easier and happier. And then finally, if you are a planner, which I think most of you are, New Year's Day virtual retreat. So I usually do a New Year's Eve and a New Year's Day in-person retreat. Well, this year that will not be happening, obviously. So I'm going to do an online one on New Year's Day from 2 to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and there's a link in the show notes and over on the website, kimberlywilson.com/virtual retreat, and would love to have you with us. It's just always so much fun to kind of start off the new year with intention and also within a really, really sweet community. These events are always just magical. Now, without further ado, Ellen Meredith is the author of The Language Your Body Speaks, an intuitive and energy medicine practitioner with over 35 years of experience. She's served on the faculty of energy medicine pioneer Donna Eden since 2010 and teaches energy healing techniques all over the world. She lives in Marin County in California, and you can find her at ellenmeredith.com. Welcome, Ellen.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here, Kimberly.
I'm delighted to have you, and congratulations on your new book, The Language Your Body Speaks, Self-Healing with Energy Medicine.
Oh, thanks. It's a baby that was long in the making, so I was really happy to see it finally come out.
Well, so tell us a little bit about this language and how you've learned to connect to it.
Okay. Well, in a word, the language your body speaks is energy. Basically, your body has two different communication systems. There's the chemical communications of your body, and then there's the energetic ones. And the way I connected into it originally was because I was trained by inner teachers. I'm a writer, and I had finished a book. I was sitting around waiting to sort of for inspiration, I guess I'd say. And my grandmother, who's dead, showed up behind me with a message and totally broke my world open. I didn't have a belief one way or another in whether spirits existed or any of that kind of thing. But the message was compelling enough that I wrote it down. And a couple days later, someone came to my door and said, I'm headed off to a psychic fair. Do you want to come? It was someone I barely knew. And I said, sure, I'll go. And when I went to this psychic fair, I sat down for my little $5 reading. It was a spiritualist church. And the psychic, bless her heart, she looked at me and she said, your maternal grandmother is standing right behind you and she has a message. And it was the exact message I had received. So I was hooked. I wanted to know, what is this stuff and what does it have to teach me? And the psychics, I asked her, are you reading my mind, or is it really, are you perceiving my grandmother? And she said, it's my belief that I'm perceiving your grandmother and that you get lots of messages and you could slow down and just listen to them and learn from them. And so I did. A couple days later, I realized there was a message kind of scrolling through my head as like a little ticker tape. And I wrote the message down as it came in. And again, it was compelling. It explained some things to me about a dream, about a relationship, about my work. And I thought, I want to know more. So I entered into dialogue with my inner teachers every day. And it was very intensive for many years. I mean, it's been 45 years or something since I started. And I'm still learning from them. But they brought me into first awareness of energy, and then later taught me how to be a healer. And it's sort of a long unfolding process.
Well, and so kind of with this process, how does energy medicine tie in? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. Energy medicine is any form of healing that uses the energy communications of the body as opposed to the chemical ones. And so that includes yoga, it includes Ayurvedic medicine, it includes acupuncture, acupressure, and it includes something called energy medicine itself, which is rooted some in Chinese medicine and other traditions where people have used the body's own communication systems as both the patient and the medicine. So energy medicine uses energetic tools such as using sound or rhythm or color or movement or gesture, tapping, something that moves or shifts energies. We use those to address not just what's wrong and illness, but also how to construct better wellness. A yoga practitioner doesn't just do yoga when she has a headache. She does yoga to build strength and to build a better instrument and better communications in her body overall.
And so how have you personally used energy medicine?
One thing that's a little radical about my book, but I think is getting more common as time goes on, is that I really see healing as a communication process, not as a medical situation. Even if you have something like a tumor or a cancer, there is a medical dimension to it, but healing it is much more about activating better mind-body communication and really finding out what your body needs, what your mind needs, what your spirit needs, and where those communications are not happening effectively. And that is, I had severe migraines for about 15 years. I had daily migraines. And, you could call it a hereditary pattern because my mother and grandmother and cousin all had the same pattern, or you could call it a learned pattern. I don't know which it is. But I tried to address what's wrong over and over. I'd say, what's wrong? How can I fix it? And that's That's the model in our medicine, right? We go to a doctor to get a diagnosis. What's wrong and how can I fix it? And it didn't shift until I shifted my question and started asking, what is needed and how can I supply it? And moment by moment, as I started to ask, not just my head, but my whole body, what do you need right now? What can I do for you? What is going on? What's being expressed through these symptoms? Not just symbolically, but literally. I would get guidance from my body on how to shift the energy and how to shift the pain. And for example, I remember once I had a blinding headache. It wasn't really a migraine, it was an overall headache. And I asked my body, what can I do for you right now? And I got this image of plunging my feet in very cold water. And I tried it, and sure enough, the headache went away in about a minute. So that's how I've used it for me. As I got over the headaches, I don't have them hardly at all anymore. I mean, once in a while, if I have really bad jet lag, I can get a headache. But mostly I can dialogue with my body and get it to move out again once I've found out what my body is trying to communicate using that flag of the headache.
Oh, that sounds amazing to not have to go through the hardcore migraine medications and the
Yes.
side effects that happen like the hour after you take the medication. It's like, oh my gosh, but it's such a treat to have the migraine gone, but to be able to
Right.
dialogue with your body and kind of ask it, what does it need? How do we get started with that? Because I assume that takes practice and time.
Well, it takes only a moment. You never need more than a moment because it's what is needed in this moment. And how you get started, we all know how to speak energy. It is our first language, but we've forgotten it, or it's been socialized out of us to even listen to our bodies, to even tune in and say, hey, what do you need right now? And I was a real fixer-upper because I was so out of tune with my body that I couldn't even tell if I was hungry. I'd have to think, when did I eat? How much did I eat? Was that enough? Should I be hungry right now? I mean, that's how far away I had drifted from the signals that my body was giving me, but I couldn't hear them. So one way to get started is whatever signals you do get, just tune into them for a moment and see if that's what your body wants. It's like if I handed you an infant who doesn't speak and she started crying, what would you do to figure out what she needed? I mean, you might rock her, you might give her a little love, you might give her a little kiss, you might see if she needed some food, you might check to see if her diaper was wet. And so that's one way to think about it, is that our creature self, our physical body, is like an infant, like a dog, like a cat. It's got an aspect to it that is not verbal, but can communicate through imagery, through sensation, through any of your senses, actually. Another way to get started, I could teach a little quick exercise if you'd like.
Yeah.
It's from my book. It's called Healing Hands. So what you do is you just rub your hands together to activate them. And then you take one hand, it doesn't matter which one, and say to it, where do you want to go on my body or in my field? And you just let the hand go. The hands know how to speak energy way better than the brain does. Learning to speak energy is a matter of training your brain to understand what your body already knows how to do. So you just say, where do you want to go? And you put your hand there. And then you ask the other hand, where do you want to go? And you put that hand where it wants to go. And you just hold that connection that you have intuitively found. Your hands took you to where your body needs some touch and some connection. For one thing, what at the root of almost all illness is a whole lot of disconnection. Disconnection from ourselves, disconnection from the moment, disconnection from what the body's communicating or needing, et cetera, et cetera. So you bring connection, and then when one hand wants to move, you just say, where do you want to go? And you keep moving hand by hand as they say, now I'm done here, I want to go there. And you follow that pattern until you feel like you've completed some kind of process. It might be a minute, it might be 5 minutes. You can even do it for an hour if you're lying in bed or listening to a podcast or something. But what that does is it starts to hook up energy communications in the body that your body knows it needs help with, but your brain doesn't yet understand. But it's a great way to start because you can get a lot of really good energy shifts and energy improvement just doing that. And over time, you'll start to get a feeling for, wow, when my face hurts, if I put my hands on the back of my head for a few minutes, it really helps my face relax. I don't know why. Or, you begin to map out how your own body communicates. And it's unique to each person.
Well, you know what I think is so interesting about what you said too, about how you were at some point like, am I hungry? When did I last eat? Because, that's one of the things that I've read a lot with regard to headaches is like you could be dehydrated, right? And so
right.
it's like, it's so interesting that we can be, myself included, so out of touch that we're like, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? It's like these basic needs. And so how did you get better at recognizing when you were hungry? Or, how do you teach your clients to get more in touch with these kind of basic needs to really help with healing and listening to our bodies?
Well, it is a matter of asking the question. The body kind of says, well, thank you for asking. And it will give you better insight. Maybe you tune into your throat and your mouth and your stomach. Maybe you put a hand here or there and just feel into it for a moment. Maybe you don't know. So you go to the kitchen and you get a glass of water and you get a little food and you think of 3 or 4 things that might be possible. Maybe you shut your eyes and get an image of something. And try a little of each and say, is this what I wanted? Is this what I needed? It is so sad, but in our culture, we are almost trained not to hear our needs, not to listen. I mean, just think about kids in schools sitting in rows, being asked to sit still. They can't go to the bathroom unless they really have to. They can't go get something to drink. They can't get a snack. Everything is on a schedule that's external to their own body's rhythms. And they being we, right? So most of us went through that kind of training and socialization so that by the time we get to our adult selves, we are used to taking everything up into the intellect to get the intellectual answer. And it's a matter of dropping back into your body to see if your body has an answer. If you get an image in your mind, it can be a direct thought, but it can also be a sensation. I mean, what does hunger or thirst actually feel like in your body? And, it's okay to experiment. It's okay to not have a right answer and just experiment with, well, gee, I think I'm hungry and I don't know why I would be. I just had lunch an hour ago. Maybe I'll try drinking some water and see if that's what's needed. Maybe what I'm hungry for is metaphoric and I'm going to reach out. I'm going to stop doing my taxes or some task I really felt I had to do. And I'm going to spend 5 minutes feeding my soul. I'm going to just spend 5 minutes doing something that nourishes and feeds me emotionally or spiritually and see if that's what my body was craving with that sensation that my mind thought was hunger.
With these basic needs, it is a great place to start because one of the things, as a therapist, I work with a lot of clients and, say that you are debating like, do I go this route or do I go that route? And I'll always encourage people, well, let's picture you going route A. How does that feel in your body? Okay, picture route B. How does that feel in your body? Now, some people, like if they did theater or they, were in dance or something, yoga, I mean, maybe they're quite in touch with their bodies. But most of us, I feel like walk around as, our body's really just there to transport our head, as if our head's the most important thing, right?
Right, head on a stick.
Head on a stick, exactly. And the body just gets in the way by needing, to be fed and nourished. And so,
right.
How do you really kind of, help people, get in touch with like their almost like their gut around this sort of stuff? Because I assume with, clients you've worked with or people you've come across, you've probably come across some pretty heady people where it's really hard to notice even the sensation of hunger.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing that I love about the form of energy medicine I practice, which I trained with a woman named Donna Eden, who's got a method called Eden Method or Eden Energy Medicine. I also, this was after I also trained with my inner teachers, and the two methods are very similar, kind of like Irish and English, very, very related. But it is a body-based exploration, so it involves touch. And, if you're in the field of psychotherapy, you're not allowed because of your licensing to touch your clients, but there's no rule that says your clients can't touch themselves. And in our culture, touch has been so sexualized and so distorted that many of my clients go through their day, they don't touch themselves. If they have a headache, they go get a pill. They don't even think to put their hand on their head or on their neck, or to get a cold cloth and try that. They don't, all the old wives' tales or old grandmothers' remedies that were so powerful when we didn't have access to the little white pills all the time. They're really golden to bring back in as a baseline. A lot of people will say, well, you could say, what did your grandmother used to do when she had an issue? And some people will know the answer. Others, it's about getting them back to a sensory motor experience of just exploring the world with their instrument. And I've had clients, I talk in the book about a client who had a grandmother who was a Holocaust survivor. And she inherited a level of anxiety that wasn't even conscious, that no one ever talked about. Her mother was a real, kind of go-getter and was very, very accomplished in the world, and my client was very accomplished in the world. But she had chronic problems with her gut and with all kinds of stuff. She had a whole long list of diagnoses that were very impressive and were taking up all her time and energy trying to manage. And but I could tell when she walked in the office, because I'm trained to hear and perceive energies, it was like an alarm going off or a dog whistle. It was this constant state of anxiety in the background that got coded into her when she was an infant exploring the world. So playing with a ball wasn't just playing with the ball, it was playing with the ball plus mom's anxiety about, am I doing this right? Or is she going to get hurt? Or, whatever was in the environment. So what her process was, and I think it's very useful to all of us in the privacy of our own homes, is to take yourself back to a sensory motor experience. And that just means, what an infant does. She tastes things, she touches things, she bounces and pushes them. Or, I have two kittens right now and they're doing the same thing. Every object has to be explored in a very sense-oriented way, sensual in the sense, or sense-oriented way. So that's one way for them to start back in. Just start touching themselves and see what that feels like, on their legs, on their face, and to take an emotion, and your listeners can do this right now. Take some emotion you would like to invite into your body, mind, spirit right now. The one that came to me was hope. That just popped into my head, but I don't want to interfere. Someone else may have something else. Can you think of one gesture that you could do with your arms, like almost like fake sign language, and no disrespect to ASL speakers, a sign or a gesture that for you means hope? Did you try one?
Mm-hmm.
Can you want to talk about what you just tried?
Sure. It's compassion and hand over heart.
Okay. So in that moment, you communicated with your body non-verbally with a gesture. And over time, each time there's some quality, some intellectual thing that you think, I wonder how this would speak to my body. You can ask your body to give a gesture. Just sort of intuitively make up something that says that same energy or quality through a gesture. So you begin to build up your core vocabulary of things that are physicalized, of emotions and thoughts and feeling states and energy states that you physicalize in a single moment. And, the lovely thing about, if you see it as a language, is that with a language model, we ask sort of what's being expressed here? How's it being expressed? And what would I need to communicate better? And there's not a big right answer out there. It's not like with medicine, what's wrong? How do I fix it? Where we have to have the diagnosis. Just in this moment, what might improve what's going on? How can I feel what's going on a little stronger or a little better? And so you talked about the clients with the choice, and they didn't know what choice to make. One thing my teachers always said was, if you don't know what choice, if you're really stuck on a choice and you can't see which way to go, it's because you're not quite at this choice point yet. So shut your eyes, stop in your tracks, shut your eyes, tune in, and find out exactly where you are. And find out exactly what you need in this moment, because your internal guidance system is in the present, and it will say, in this moment, I need this. And often the person will find, I can't make this decision because I'm exhausted, and I just need 3 nights sleep before I can even address the question my mind wants to have an answer to. So in a way, I'm talking about developing an ongoing, what I call an energy dialogue with your body and your mind and your spirit, because they all communicate using energy, moment by moment. Then it's not intimidating. You either get information or you don't. And, if you don't, fine, go entertain yourself. But you might say, what do I need right now? And I'll say, oh my gosh, I need that color on that wall. It's just so speaking to me. I'm going to spend like 3 seconds just gazing and taking it in, and take a little shower. My color is kind of a blue purple here. I'm going to just do a little shower of blue purple and see what that does for my energies, because that's what my attention was called to in this moment, as in response to the question, what's needed? And how can I cultivate it?
What's needed and how to cultivate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that, because I do love, as you mentioned earlier in our interview, of like switching from what's wrong to like what's needed, to bring my well-being, to bring well-being to like my mind, body, and spirit.
Right. And in addition to the what's wrong that is kind of the addictive thought of our culture, the other one is sorry, I just had a brain stop. Hold on, I'm going to stop a second. Okay, let me try again. It went right out of my head. In addition to what's wrong and how do I fix it, we also kind of ask, how can I be better? How can, it's a kind of compulsive perfectionism. And another option in a moment is to stop and say, what's good here and how can I celebrate it?
I like that.
Yeah, what is nice in this moment? It doesn't have to be a peak experience, but what's pleasant in this moment? And how can I stop and appreciate it? Because it's here. And we have minds that are a little bit hungry ghosts. They're always looking for the next thing, the next fulfillment, the next achievement, the next goal. And we project ourselves out to the future. But the instrument of the body is really designed to function in the present. And so your optimum instrument, your optimum physical functioning is in the present. And you can look at your whole relationship between past, present, and future. And if you find you're always kind of casting your attention to the future or casting it back to the past, then stop and say, well, what's in this moment for me? What can I take in my surrounding? And if the answer is nothing, there's nothing here that I want to take in or can take in, well, then get up and move to another room. Put yourself in a different environment and see how that can feed you. It doesn't always have to be positive. Sometimes you can wallow in some really good sorrow and just like a pig in mud, get into the sadness and the sorrow and the grief of it, and know that it'll carry you to a new place. So it's not just always seeking the positive thought or the positive energy. It's seeking the truth of what energy has to offer, and then playing with it in a way that celebrates the good and honors the important.
Well, you know what I like about this too is, sometimes you just have a feeling, right? You get an email or you run into someone and you're just like, ugh, it's just like you just feel like not good, right? But you don't necessarily know, you can't put your finger on it, but you just don't feel right. And, so what I think is so important about this is just paying attention to those things, and being able to ask, like, what is it about this email that's upsetting me? Or what is it about my interaction with so-and-so that just kind of left me feeling sad or disappointed? And it does. It just brings to ideally, so much more self-awareness, but also switching that what's wrong to what's right is like, so refreshing also.
Yeah, and it's a relief. It takes the burden of perfectionism off our shoulders. I don't have to be perfect because I'm pretty sure in the next 5 seconds I'm not going to get to perfection as some kind of future trip thing, but I can have a perfect 5 seconds here just enjoying talking to you and looking at the colors around me and having my hands on my knees and thinking, oh, that's so nice. That feels good. Whatever it is we have in our present experience, if we show up for it, if we really show up for our experience moment by moment, it deepens and deepens. And of course, an instrument that is tuned to the present and to the real experience is capable of profound spiritual experience as well, because the spirit can be heard and seen and felt if we're actually inhabiting the instrument that we've created to be here on the planet Earth as humans.
And let me ask you this, kind of what do you hope readers will take away from the language your body speaks?
Well, I want everyone to know that it's not a special psychic ability that you need. Everyone has the built-in ability to speak energy, to perceive it and communicate using it. And it's really easy. It's not a foreign language. It's really about learning what you already knew in this lifetime. So it's remembering what you know, recognizing how you're already using it. And that's what I do in the book. I provide a kind of a total immersion experience so that the person reading the book is reminded of all the ways she already knows this language. And that's what I want them to take away, that this isn't some program that you have to work on and have discipline. It's just moment by moment transacting your life a little bit differently so that you can actually smell the roses and taste the coffee and enjoy the beautiful flowers you're looking at and feel the person you're with and experience your experience directly rather than through some abstract after the fact summary.
Beautifully said. And as you were saying that, I was like noticing I have stargazer lilies on my desk and, just the fragrance and how beautiful they are. So as you were like, and notice the flowers, I'm like, yes.
Yes. And what could be better than that? What could you strive for that could be better than that moment of connection with the flowers? But what happens is the flowers then become a doorway to all kinds of experience that you can't get to if you don't take the time to smell the flowers.
Mm.
The person who doesn't know how to choose which job path to take probably isn't wanting a job at all, probably is wanting something totally different, and neither of the two choices really represents what their body, mind, and spirit are craving at that time. And that's the real issue. So once you address that, then the body, mind, and spirit relent and say, oh yeah, but okay, we'll choose that job because you're going to get more of what you need overall.
My last question for you, Ellen, is the name of this podcast is Tranquility du Jour. So I'm curious, how do you find tranquility in your everyday?
Well, it's pretty much what I've been talking about of returning to my body and just being a creature, maybe 20, 30, 40 times a day. I return to my creature existence and just turn off my brain and enjoy it for a moment. Not while I'm driving. I never do it while I'm driving, but just like I would stop and pet my kitty or pet a dog, I stop and just acknowledge that. And it just brings me back to such peace. And it makes me feel so centered. It is kind of like an hour of meditation or something.
Yeah. Well, and you said like not while driving, but at stoplights you could, right? You could have a
Totally.
moment,
Yeah, at stoplights. And, it doesn't always involve shutting your eyes and going, deeply inward. It can also be, for example, what you can do when you're driving is, and you find, say you're driving and you're feeling kind of tense, is tap a really calm rhythm or sing a real gentle, kind of slower, happy song, and it will bring your energy back into balance and stop it from rushing forward. So there's lots you can do with energy to shift your energy while you're driving, but I don't usually shut my eyes while I'm driving.
Right. Good idea.
Yeah, or operating heavy machinery, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Ellen, for being on the show today. I really appreciate all your insights.
Well, sure. It's been lovely, and thank you for having me, and thank you for this wonderful work. I'm so impressed that you've had a podcast for all these years, and it's I imagine it's quite an impressive body of work by now. So, congratulations.
Thank you. Over in the show notes, you'll find a link to Ellen's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And then finally, I would love to connect with you. So if we haven't yet, please join the TDJ Insiders Facebook group, where you'll get resources, inspiration, make connections, and be part of the online book club. And this month's is called More Than Enough, and it's so good. And if you're new to Tranquility du Jour, a big welcome. And there's a link in the show notes where you can find out a little bit more, or just click the new here button at KimberlyWilson.com. And if you're not receiving my love notes, would love to give a little bit of inbox inspiration to you weekly. And there's a link to sign up for that in the show notes. Also link to my books and planner. If you're gearing up for 2021, I have a planner that is just filled with tranquility tools and tips. And then also kind of daily outlines on how to find more kind of ease in every day. There's also a link to find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and to shop my seasonless, vegan, locally made, eco-friendly clothing line. Finally, if you have a moment to share a review of my work on iTunes, Amazon, or Goodreads, I would be so grateful. Send me a note if you do it with a link, and I will send you a thank you postcard. Always fun to get snail mail, right? Especially these days. So thanks as always for tuning in, and I wish you a delightful week ahead. Namaste.